game's gonna be tough, but it is indoors. Lions are
What
excited
is
for it.
going on today, people? Of course, we do know the Dallas Cowboys fell to the Buffalo Bills tonight. Final score: Dallas Cowboys 10, the Buffalo Bills 31. Here, my boy Ryan again. Let's get into this game a little bit. Like I said, honestly, we were just kind of talking about it a little bit. There's not much to overanalyze in this game because if you're looking at the way that the game went, it was kind of one of those when it rains it pours type games. It's one of those situations. I think the team got themselves in some bad situations, whether it was unfortunate penalty calls. We're talking about plays that again you're not going to be able to count on. We kind of talked about it a little bit before the stream went live that the Dallas Cowboys are not one of those teams that are really built for to stop the run. We're not one of those teams that you're really built for getting into these. I don't want to say physical battles, but you're not really in the mix of one of these teams that we were talking about where it's raining, the weather's not the best. We're talking about the field might be a little more slippery. Guys are really, especially on the opposite side of the ball. You saw the Buffalo Bills tonight; they just ran it down our throats. We couldn't do anything about it. To me, the Cowboys were more reliant on our offense since the Trayvon Diggs injury, the things like that. We already know the course of this team changed completely. We came in ready to be a defensive oriented team, kind of be more methodical on offense. And obviously things changed after the since the Chargers game. Things kind of we pretty much I guess you want to say flipped on the other side. Now we're predominantly an offensive team, and then our pass rush. That's where our best bet. We have some of course obviously talking about Deron Bland, your ball hawking type cornerbacks and DBs on this team. That's what we play more off of. And obviously, we did not get that opportunity today because, again, it was one of those whether it was some bad play calls, bad penalties early in the game that kind of kept the Bills having some life. And then they're able to punch in and take advantage of those mistakes by the Cowboys. And it's one of those games, again, you don't want to get too down on this team because it is still a long season. We do still have some things that we're going to be able to talk about. But the Cowboys have got to figure out what exactly is the issue. Ryan, what are your thoughts, man? What do you think about how the game went or just your outlook on the team after this game?
Yeah, very. My outlook on the team hasn't changed. The game overall is very frustrating. One of those games where, um, if anyone has interacted with me, knew I was pretty worried all week, just because, you know, however you want to swing it. I think the Vegas line was 2.5 at Buffalo. Team
Hmm.
in the rain.
Yep.
All of a sudden, the whole team's sick. All of a sudden, messed up the rhythm. Once these reports start coming out
Yep.
randomly on a Sunday morning, I'm like, okay, this is gonna be just a weird game. It was, and uh, out out physical. That definitely I feel like. And yeah, we're not built that way, but Buffalo, they are a little bit more prepared probably to play in the rain just because they're used to that. But just out coached, man. And our game plan honestly should have been what Buffalo did in a sense, knowing how bad the weather is. We're a West Coast offense. We just
Yep.
score at will. Pouring rain, things are going to change. Fluky penalties. Dak gets his head ripped off. No flag. Zach Martin backs up Dak flag. And flag. It's just all these weird things happening. And that's just how it's going to go in games like that. But again, with how the weather was, Buffalo saw that, and their game plan was we're going to run it 11 times in a row
Yeah.
until they stop it. And hey, guess what? We didn't stop it. That's really unfortunate. That's what the most frustrating thing is where were the zero in-game adjustments, zero halftime adjustments. They had 30 rushing plays to 14 passing plays or something.
Yep.
So where was the okay? No more. Just load the box as much as possible. We're not going to get flags. We're not going to get certain calls, and that is what it is. But to just get out coached, and every loss, it seems like we get out coached in a sense.
Yep.
That part's frustrating as well. But this is a game that I just don't really want to critique too much, man, because luckily, AFC opponent. It was just a beat a good team in their home in bad weather to see where you're at game. I know that's what the media and Twitter and everything runs with, but at the end of the day, we're 10-4. AFC opponent doesn't affect us, our seeding or nothing.
Yeah.
Overall record seeding maybe, but not conference play or whatever. And we're gonna get a couple of these games back. I mean, with Miami coming up and then
Yep.
Detroit, two very good teams. But I think we could we'll be fine. We usually rebound pretty well, and then everything's back smooth sailing because a game against Miami, is game one because they just the Dolphins just whooped the team they played,
Yeah.
and then we got smashed. But so then usually we end up flipping it on the other team, but we beat them. they, whoever we play drops one, and then we go back to our NFC games, and then in the dome again, Lions, whoever, we're gonna be fine, man. I don't really like to get into too deep into things with games like this where it was just ugly overall. Refs, weather, everything. I don't want to start talking ourselves out of the reality of things.
Yeah.
And that's like, we're fine. It just, it was annoying. It was frustrating. But our style offense, we need sunny days and domes. We can't do hurricanes, rains, especially,
Yeah.
So it is what it is. We're gonna be fine. It's just frustrating because now we have to listen to everything. Like we haven't been winning, all these games in a row. Number one offense. That stuff's all of a sudden gonna be gone now just because we had a bad game, and it was a bad game against Buffalo.
Yep.
they didn't. They did. They ran it at will, but Josh Allen didn't do much. They didn't have some crazy deep bombs. They didn't have any interceptions or fumbles or anything like that. It was just a game where they lined up against us, ran it down our throats, so we couldn't stop it, man.
And then when you're looking at the stats, so then what? Josh Allen 7 of 15, 94 yards and a touchdown. It wasn't like he was eating us alive. He was doing anything spectacular, anything crazy, which is exactly what got the Cowboys in trouble because going into this game, I was of the mindset, obviously, we need a guy like Josh Allen to be able to be aggressive, but you also need to be able to put your team in position to make him be aggressive. And we never did that all game. It was pretty much like you just said, pretty much they're handing the ball off. We say 11 times in a row at one point because obviously, and when you're watching the plays, to me, see people talking about it, trying to compare it to the 49ers game. The 49ers were doing a lot of different things. They were running multiple type formations. They were doing all types of things. They were just beating us across the board. The Buffalo Bills, it literally, when you're watching the game, it seems like they ran 3 to 4 to 5 plays over and over and over and were forcing us to try to stop it. And we did not. Again, we can go to this game where we're talking about pretty much not having a guy like Jonathan Hankins is big. That crushed this team because when you're looking at what Jonathan Hankins brings on just the interior of this defense, Mozzie Smith is not ready. And I was never the mindset that I thought he was going to be ready, but I thought he would be Jonathan Hankins would be like a great mentor for him in his first year because again, you're going to be able to figure out just getting your body where it needs to be. Figure out, again, we're talking about hand placement. That's what most of these guys, especially talking about rookies coming into the league, you have some guys that are sitting here 20 years old, 19, 22, 21, 22 years old. You're going against veterans, wily veterans, especially on offensive line. You're talking about 30-year-olds. Look at who we have, the veterans we have on our O-line alone. So you're talking about these are the guys you go up against predominantly. So I wasn't expecting Mozzie Smith to be like a major contributor. I was expecting him to be a part of it, which I guess you want to say, if you want to call that unfortunate, I'll call it unfortunate because he's not even seeming like he's a part of it. He fell into a sack today. It was like, I think he ended up getting a sack, but it was one of those plays where he's kind of just hustling, finding himself to be in the right position. But Mozzie Smith is not there yet. And to me, when you're watching this team, I'm going to say this, like I was telling Ryan right before the stream started, I don't feel like this is anything that anybody can look at as a blueprint because, again, you're not going to be able to duplicate more times than not things that happen tonight. You're not going to have bad penalties. And I'm talking about bad penalties where they're crushing bad penalties because, again, they're continuing drives repeatedly. You're not going to continue to see, again, I guess you want to talk about even just the weather, the rainy weather, the rainy conditions, the things like that. You're not going to be able to sit here and say that every single week we're going to have bad weather. Every single week we're going to look like the worst tackling team in the league. Now, do I think my problem is when it comes to our tackling, we're playing so much. We talk about what Dan Quinn loves, these hybrid linebackers, safeties. That's what gets us into trouble when we get into these physical battles because you're watching guys like Marquise Bell. He's not out there ready to pretty much hit stick anything. But again, he's used to making these plays when you're going against obviously smaller guys or he's receivers or running backs. He's having to kind of keep in contact with we watched him get beat by Dalton Kincaid on a play that Dalton dropped the ball. But you're watching situations like this. Dalton Kincaid is one of those where you're looking at the game and you're saying, the Bills could have had much more, but we didn't relinquish that. And again, to me, it takes it to the fact that we never forced them to. We didn't force them to be aggressive. We didn't force them to have to go after what we were going to force them to do. And that's, to me, that's what the biggest problem was, I guess you want to say. It's one of those, you're going to be able to look and say, the Cowboys, are you going to expect them to kind of follow themselves into this every single week? I don't think so. But at the end of the day, you also have to you do have to look at some of the bad things that happen in this game. like I said, I kind of talked about just again the tackling. We're talking about just the lack of discipline. Sam Williams, to me, I feel like next year is going to be one of the years where he's going to be one of those splash players and guys that's going to make some plays. But Sam Williams still has to get the bonehead out of his play because he has all the talent. When you watch him, he's a splash player. He makes plays, but he'll make a play and he'll come back and do something completely that'll kind of, I guess you want to say, cancel it out pretty much. And you can't do those over and over and over, especially when you're looking to be a team that is going to be one of those teams in the final mix of talking about trying to be championship contenders. You can't have those because we were talking about when you get to Mike McCarthy. I can talk about Mike McCarthy in a little bit. We can get into that. But just the making mistakes, when you get to the postseason, it's lose and go home. It's that simple. You can't make one of these mistakes that can be detrimental and, again, crushing to the team overall because, again, at the end of the day, you don't get a second chance in the playoffs. And that's what I feel like my biggest problem with this game. The Cowboys have to lock down some of this stuff because, again, you can't say, yeah, we're sitting at 10-4. You're still in good hands. But you cannot look up and say, why exactly are we sitting here in the same position we're looking in year after year after year? We have a great team during the regular season. We make some noise, make splashes. Of course, media's going to talk about it. Dak was an MVP candidate. We talked about that for predominantly the second half of the season. But then you get to the postseason and we watch it fall. And again, I feel like this team is a little different because I don't think that they're as scared of the postseason, kind of like making those postseason mistakes as they have been the last couple of years. I feel like we're kind of, I don't want to say true and tested because, again, we can always talk about woulda, shoulda, coulda. You go to last year, that was our best opportunity to beat the San Francisco 49ers. And if Tony Pollard doesn't get hurt, I feel like we literally grab control. Now, do we keep control? I don't know. But at that point, we were at perfect position to grab control prior to the Tony Pollard injury. We beat the 49ers last year. We're not even having these same talks of, oh, can the Cowboys beat the 49ers? Or the 49ers just that team? Because even if they beat us earlier this year again, if we pull off that playoff win, nobody's looking at us as we're just this team that can't get over the hill. My thing is the Cowboys, they have just got to put it on paper because I feel like the culture is built or being built. I feel like this is a different organization right now. I do feel like nobody's really sitting here and just looking and saying they're scared of the moment anymore. But at the end of the day, you can't have too many of these games. Because like you said, postseason is lose and go home. You don't get, nobody's gonna wonder why your excuses or why you lost. It was some bad penalties. The refs were not on the right page. They weren't on the same page. Mike McCarthy not calling a challenge on the Donovan Wilson play when he should have. You don't get second chances. So I think this team is ready. We're just gonna have to clean up these nasty things. And again, luckily, like I told Ryan prior to hopping on here, obviously, you're not playing the Buffalo Bills again. You're not gonna play a team like the Buffalo Bills again unless you go unless you meet somehow in the Super Bowl, or you're not gonna play a team in Buffalo with this weather talking for the remainder of the season. I think we have the Dolphins next week, then it's the Lions after that, and I think we wrap the season up with who is it 3 games left?
Redskins, right? Or
Commanders, I think. Yeah, is it only 3 games? Yeah, Dolphins, Lions, and I think, and the Commanders. So this team is in the mix to be able to make some noise, but you have got to clean it up because this was not a game that I feel like you even want to take with you. You kind of want to throw it in the dumpster, take your mistakes that you can and whatever you did positive if you find anything, and then scrap the rest, man.
Yeah, and we're gonna be fine. Like I said, we rebound well. The Dolphins had a really good game, so they're gonna be coming off a high thing, and we have a way of beating teams like that after we lose.
Yep.
Okay, cool. We lost. There's 3 whole games left. That's plenty of games to get a 3-game win streak and go into the playoffs. Boom. Yeah. So there's enough games left. Like I don't need to win 5, 6, 7 in a row to go to the playoffs.
Yeah.
If I can win 2 in a row or 3 in a row, I'm happy because that's 2 or 3 back-to-back wins.
Yep.
That is a good thing to take to the playoffs. We're gonna end up playing a team probably in a dome, and that's perfectly fine. And I think we're gonna be fine. We should. My biggest worry game is out of the way, and that was today. I'm not too worried about the Dolphins. Their type of offense, yeah, they just score everywhere, but Tua gets killed sometimes. Tua throws interceptions sometimes. Tua gets sacked sometimes. Like we can stop them. They've lost plenty of times. Miami has with their offense. So
Yep.
their offense all of a sudden isn't just going to come in here and be. Now I'm sure they're going to test our guys.
Yep. That's for sure.
If we beat Miami, we got a really tough task against Detroit. But okay, 2 weeks before the season, maybe some kind of freaky thing happens where some guys, rest or whatever. Because against Washington, it's like we don't, we already clinched. We're probably not going to win the division. Yeah, we're probably going to play our stars against Washington, but I'm not, maybe halftime game or something.
One of those situations, yeah. Like what is check the chat real quick. Rudy says yes. At least Dallas clinched the playoff spot. Yes, at least we clinched the playoff spot. I mean, it's one of those. I guess you want to say silver lining things, but I think what Dak would you say Ryan Dak came out post game and said he didn't care.
He didn't care.
Hey, you know what? I feel like at this point in time, we're looking at a team that I think Dak knows he's in year 8. This is about the point of the time where if you're getting a contract extension, if you're getting another sign, you're going to be with the team again. But you're now starting to hit that point in time where you're going to look up and say,
I can see why he doesn't care because we got whooped, but at the same time, it's like it's an AFC team. It's Buffalo. It doesn't affect us conference wise. So it is yes, it is still to his point. It's still a good thing. We still make the playoffs. Thank God. I saw today, first time since the '90s that we've made it to the playoffs 3 seasons in a
in a
row.
row, yeah.
So that's a great. I mean, there's a lot of pluses and positives coming from that.
Yeah.
Us losing to an AFC team isn't really something to just be sad about. Yeah, it's sad that we once again can't beat a good team at their home in bad weather. Blah blah blah. We feel perfect. I get
Yeah.
that. But yes, we made the playoffs and that is amazing. And that's why I said okay, now we can regroup. I think we squeak by Miami, and then Detroit's a toss up because they're a great team. Detroit's doing really good things right now, but we just have a way of doing what we're supposed to do, and with this much smaller scale of only 3 games left, this of course will be the time that all of a sudden we're going to win 3 games in a row, go into the playoffs, and either lose the first round or win another one and go to the next. Which I don't see who we're going to play in the first round that's going to beat us. Hell,
Yeah.
we might play Detroit again. You never know.
Yeah.
I'm hoping it's Atlanta or Green Bay or something, but if it's Detroit, then cool. We have good luck against Detroit. Detroit's a great team, but we're the better team. I think we're better than a lot of the first round teams we're gonna play. Losing to a whole different conference team isn't gonna change my mind about that. Especially knowing we're probably not gonna play a team outside, pouring rain, Dak getting his head ripped off, no flag. So it's gonna be fine. A lot of freaky things have to happen a month from now, pretty much, in order for me to panic in the playoffs, and I just don't see that happening. Not with the 3 teams we have left. We have 3 solid teams left, but no Buffalo, no Kansas City, no Philly, even if you want, no 49. They're teams that are beatable.
Yeah.
The Dolphins have what 5 losses, 6 losses. I mean, cool. Their offense is amazing, and they did great today, but they have their bonehead games as well.
Yep.
They've lost to bad teams as well.
I said the one and only Ron the Don Smith. Yeah, we have the Miami Dolphins, then with Detroit, and then we have the Washington Commanders. Yeah, like I said, so 3 games to wrap up this season. You have now showed, and again, of course, Bleacher Report. You start getting the notifications after the game. Are the Cowboys now finally have they given up the blueprint? Have the Buffalo Bills shown the blueprint how to beat the Cowboys? There's no way.
Just run it because that's all they did.
Me personally, there's no way I believe there's a way to duplicate what happened in this game tonight. There's not a way. Now, again, if you've been a Cowboys fan for long enough, you've seen some crazy stuff. You've seen how up and down this thing can go. But at the end of the day, there's not much you can ever sit here and say is going to be easily to duplicate against the Cowboys. You can't tell me we're going to go through multiple drives. Again, like you said, first of all, let's start in the rain. We're not playing in the rain. And again, I'm one of the most pessimistic Cowboys fans when it's time to be pessimistic. So I never can be called the homer or the biased fan at the same time. But you look up and you say, how many situations are you going to find yourself in where you held the Cowboys to 3 points, where you held a team again that has been putting up 40 points over the last month, essentially something like that, to 3 points for an entire half, essentially. And then when you get into finally, again, we're going to get into the mix of when our offense starts to be aggressive. How many times do you think you're going to be holding a team down just this late into a game? And again, obviously, we had some injuries. You have your Zach Martin leaving the game. Then you're going to have some bang-ups. I felt before the game previously, because I made the pregame video a couple of days ago, just pretty much prepping the game, reviewing the game, was previewing the game, was going on. In the future, I kind of got lost in the mix for me. Again, and Malik Hooker wasn't playing this game. But again, I caught that like after the fact, of course. And I went into this game just thinking, Malik Hooker is one of those lunch pail players, again, kind of like I would give LVE the credit for. It's not even always going to be on the stat sheet. It's not even always going to be what he's showing. But again, it's just that guy that you know is going to be in the right place. Now, LVE, of course, he has his limitations after all these injuries. But then you're looking at Malik Hooker. He is that settling guy in that middle of our secondary because, again, he allows the Deron Blands to take these chances sometimes. He allows these guys like Stephon Gilmore to be able to play a little bit more aggressive when you do have that guy. Again, it's that veteran over the top that can kind of hold things down, hold down the fort at situational times. But that was the biggest issue to me, that the Cowboys, we had some major injuries, and I don't feel like we did anything to kind of alleviate those. Like, as soon as I saw Jaron Kearse playing our center field safety, essentially, I knew we were in trouble because that is not his game. Once you start pulling guys out of that skill set, now you find yourself in trouble. And of course, the number one thing that a lot of people, especially the casual fan, you've been watching quickly to say, Jaron Kearse got beat. My problem is you can't put players in position to do things they don't do. You're not asking Micah Parsons to go out and be in pass coverage. You're not asking guys that, again, that's Jaron Kearse has never been this lockdown, shutdown, safety defender. Now, can he guard tight ends in certain situations? Yes, that's kind of what he kind of got his calling card for over the last couple of years. But Jaron Kearse playing your center field safety, we were in trouble from that moment. And then also it plays in the simple fact of our tackling was just so bad this game. And again, we can talk about, I don't feel like we have the best tackling defense in the league or anything by any stretch of the imagination. But at the same time, I cannot see us getting into games where we are just getting obliterated, missing tackle after tackle after tackle after tackle until you look up and you say, because what's the letting other game we can say that happened a few times? You can go back to, I guess you want to say the Cardinals game. That was the first game where you saw just bad tackling. And it was like just letting guys make plays that they shouldn't have. But I feel like that was one guy still trying to get over the Trayvon Diggs injury a couple days prior. Guys, all of a sudden, you're looking at Deron Bland, predominantly a nickel corner. Now he's playing your boundary corner all of a sudden out of the blue in a couple days of prep time. And then that game was just sloppy. Guys out of control, probably in their own heads. And then, obviously, the 49ers game. That was just bad tackling. That was getting blown off the ball. That was the only other time I could say where it was just a terrible, I guess you want to say, exhibition of tackling. And we played some good offenses. So let's be clear. Everybody doing this thing where you're saying you're only playing against good teams and you're playing bad teams. We watched what the Commanders did to the Eagles. We watched, again, these are teams. This is the NFL. NFL is any given Sunday. I say that for a reason every single week. When you're watching these games, anybody can go down to anybody. So you have got to come out there ready and locked and loaded. And this was just one of those where I feel like if you ask, honestly, every Dallas Cowboys player right now, of course, you're going to have to say the media train things as if we have to get better. We have to do things different. If you're going to just ask sitting in the locker room, what a generic, what your honest answer is, you're going to be telling yourself, I feel like a lot of these players are going to be thinking, this is not happening to us. This is not going to happen to us again. And if it does, I will sit here, I'll eat crow. I will say, well, I didn't see that coming for this team specifically. Again, we're not talking about, we already know it's the easy thing to do, but go the Cowboys way and say, the Dallas Cowboys lost this game because of this. The Dallas Cowboys lost this game. And we always talk about pretty much, of course, you already know the part, I just want to say the part of this fan base that kind of is already ready to kind of just give up and say, okay, well, same old Cowboys. I don't feel like this is the team I'm going to do that on. Again, now if I'm wrong, I'm all for saying I'm wrong about it. But at the same time, I just feel like we have a different mindset. And I feel like this was just one of those games that you're going to look up at the end of a season. And sometimes, and some of the best teams, you're going to look up and you're going to ask, how did we lose that game the way we lost it? And you won't really have an answer for it. I feel like this is one of those. So just again, like I said, you don't want to throw it away completely to where you don't remember the mistakes you made, but you want to throw it away in the mindset of move on to the Dolphins. You have the Dolphins, you have the Lions, you have the Commanders. You have 3 games to show yourself. Hopefully, if the Seahawks can give us a little help, because again, this was an AFC game, and if the Seahawks can somehow pull out a win against the Eagles, everything is still right in front of you. So you'll be able to go win the division. I don't believe you're going to get the first seed anymore because I don't see the 49ers even slipping up. The closest opportunity the 49ers have is losing a game to the Ravens. And again, they still have a tiebreaker over us. And that's the only, again, chink in their armor I can see them coming up on. But if you're the Cowboys, you cannot complain about possibly being a number 2 seed. You can't complain about winning the NFC East. And then at the end of the day, now this is personally where I'm going to say last year, I'm going to say it kind of I don't say crushed me, but it was just more irritating to me after the 49ers playoff loss because I felt like with Mike McCarthy, he is a little bit more seasoned. Mistakes and all, he is more seasoned than what we're used to with a Jason Garrett. He was more seasoned than what we were used to when we're talking about a guy like just Kellen Moore as your predominant offensive play caller. But going into, like I said, last season, even with Kellen Moore as your offensive play caller, I still kind of had the mindset that all Mike McCarthy wants to do, and I don't know how many basketball fans there are here anyway, but if you go back to those years with the Boston Celtics, where they had Kevin Garnett, Ray Allen, Rajon Rondo, Paul Pierce, those guys, Doc Rivers and those guys, they were kind of talk about they would get bored with the regular season. They're waiting for the postseason. That's why they always say it. If the Celtics were a 6 seed, a 7 seed, you don't want to see them in the playoffs because they don't really care about those games. They'll load manage because they're just trying to get to the postseason. They know they can beat anybody. And I feel like with Mike McCarthy, excuse me, going into last season, I felt like that was what he was going to bring. Get us into the tournament and then see where the cards fall. For some reason, I feel even stronger this season. Now, of course, we can come out here and lay an egg next week, and my mindset will change completely because now it's like, okay, you can't give me 2 bad showings in a row. But if you come out, and I don't feel like we will, but if you come out locked and loaded and ready next week, you're going to be in a situation where you're not sitting here asking yourself, why exactly is this team just not just ready, I guess. You know what I mean? And I feel like this team is going. I feel like this is one of those teams for the Dallas Cowboys I'm speaking about. Get to the postseason, and we're going to be in good hands. I feel like we're going to be ready to take that step because I feel like Dak has taken the beating. I feel like Dak has taken the bruises. And if you watch this game, we can get into Dak Prescott, 21 to 34, 134 yards, no touchdowns, that nasty interception at the end. And it was a Dak ball where he's just trying to just make a play, and the ball got away from him a little bit. The game's already out of hand. Dak's trying to make a play. This is not one of those where I'm putting a bad lick on Dak for this game because I'm gonna start it right here. Fairly quickly. My biggest issue with this game overall, obviously outside of the bad penalties and the Dan Quinn defense today and the missed tackles and just always being out of position, my biggest issue is where I feel like we honestly lost this game outside of tackling alone. Mike McCarthy was not consistent with what he wanted to do offensively. It's like he came into this game ready to be as aggressive as we always are. But then when you're having a defense that's kind of building themselves to take away just those deep shots, take away those big plays, that's when we should have kind of gone back to kind of that system I was telling Ryan about, the way we ran, I guess the game plan against the New York Jets and like the team like the earlier on again. Because if you're watching those type of teams, what they were trying to do is take away what we're trying to give, especially. The number one thing is that's where you should hunker down, and you should honestly use it to your benefit. You do have Dak Prescott now. You see him using his legs way more. You see him just being more comfortable and not frantic. My issue I always said with Dak is when you see Dak get happy feet and start patting the ball. That's when I can tell Dak is getting he's kind of losing that balance in his head. And I always feel Dak, that's his number one skill, his best, I would guess his best trait. Is I think he does when he's playing his best, and Dak is just playing off instinct and just playing the quarterback position. He's comfortable and he's not overthinking. He's just letting the game come to him. When Dak gets into issues, I'm going to say, is when you watch his game and he starts to get happy feet. You could tell he's overthinking his decision making, and we'll see some problems. Mike McCarthy was not sure if he wanted to be aggressive today, if he wanted to be conservative, and he mixed and matched them in such an uneven way that the offense was not fluid. I told Ryan, there were many times you watch this game, we're in second and short, we're in third and short, and we're still looking for a big play when it's not necessary. This was not the game for that. This is not clean weather. It's not we're in a dome. We're not playing in a dry surface. So why are you looking for things that you don't need? This was a game to just feed. To me personally, I thought this was a game that you want to feed Jake Ferguson heavily. This is a game you wanted to feed Tony Pollard and Rico Dowdle in the passing game heavily. Mike McCarthy could have, I feel like, gashed the Buffalo Bills a few times if we just stuck to the screen game a little bit in the first half. Because the Buffalo Bills were showing they were going to just continue to be aggressive and continue to come after Dak Prescott. And what do? We didn't even try to throw them any change-ups, anything like that at all. It was just completely, we're going to do what we've been doing the last few weeks and see if that works. And all of a sudden, you look up, and then when you're having these penalties on these bad mistakes on the other side of the ball, unfortunate mistakes on the other side of the ball, that's how the game gets out of control. Because you're getting nothing, And the Bills are getting something. I don't care if it was 3. They're going to slowly keep stacking and stacking until you look up and we're down by, 18 at halftime. And I don't care how good your team is. It sounds good. You can have the most high-powered offense in the league. And I'm talking about against anybody. I don't care if you're talking about playing good teams, bad teams. But when you're playing against a team like the Buffalo Bills on the road, not the best weather, just circumstances that are not ideal to what you've been used to the last few weeks. In the last month, I'm going to say it. Plus, you're going to have to change what you do. And again, we're just in the mindset now. Mike McCarthy doesn't have any more excuses. Because I've seen over the last few weeks, of course, we already talked about, I said myself during the offseason, I thought Mike McCarthy was going to be under fire if this offense did not win in the not this offense, but this team did not win in the playoffs. I don't care what we did. We could have gone 13-0. I mean 13-0 start. And if we somehow end up 13-3, 13-4 or whatever, and then we get to the postseason and lose a game quickly, I could have seen Mike McCarthy being out of the door. Because again, you're not bringing Mike McCarthy here just to get to the postseason. Yeah, three years in the playoffs, like you said, that's great. You're not here just to get to the playoffs because we're looking up and saying you could have kept Jason Garrett for that. Hopefully, hope and pray, make the playoffs, and then hopefully, if you can kind of get a Dak game, we end up winning a playoff game. You didn't bring Mike McCarthy here there for that. So if he's going to be your guy, he's going to have to also, like I said, reassure that coaching staff stuff because I think what is going to save him some time and could potentially, regardless of how we go out, if hopefully we don't go out in the playoffs, but if we do, is the fact that he has had some success on his offensive side of the ball with Dak Prescott this year. I feel like that's what's going to save Mike McCarthy at least another year because they're going to say, well, Dak kind of had an MVP type running type season. Mike McCarthy was a big part of that. Dak Prescott is comfortable with Mike McCarthy and Brian Schottenheimer, and then that's going to buy him some more time. So I want this fan base right now to go ahead and prepare yourselves. If we somehow do not get it done in the postseason, do not come out here thinking Mike McCarthy is necessarily going to be gone. Now, let's be clear. I would say, let's be clear. Let's be clear. This is Jerry and Steven. They'll say a whole lot of things, and then people start getting their ear during the off season saying, hey, well, there is this hot shot guy over here. We feel like he can kind of do a little better. He's younger. I would never say never, but I'm just saying, I don't think it's any. I think that it's 90% plus odds that we're going to see Mike McCarthy back here next year. So he needs.
Making the playoffs 8-8. You're making the playoffs 10, 11, 12, 13 wins over and over and over again, 3 seasons in a row. And that is perfectly fine with me. That's perfectly fine with me. Get to where you got to get to, and that's the playoffs. Of course, at the end of the day, Super Bowl, NFC Championship game, I'll even take that. But you got to get to the playoffs regardless. You play the sport to get to the playoffs, and that's what we do, and that's what we're going to do. And no AFC team, out of conference team loss is going to make me, it ain't a division loss. It holds no merit. Besides, unfortunately, we are still running with the media narrative of we can't beat good teams at their home. Even though a lot of people said Seattle was a good team, we beat Philly and they're the best team. Those are going to be irrelevant just because we lost this one. Miami, another really good team. So I just want us to win one just so that is another narrative gone. And I think we have a way better shot against Miami than we do Buffalo. So I like our odds, honestly, a lot more against Miami than I do against Buffalo. Then after that with Detroit and Washington, frankly, doesn't matter to me because 3 weeks later, the playoffs. And, at some point you got to be like, okay, well, I'm cool with losing the last game of the season or whatever to prepare for the playoffs. But I think we got a good shot against Miami, man. We always rebound well. Miami, yes, is a good team, but I don't. I mean, I think the Bills may be better than Miami. So it's like I don't think Miami is going to give us anything different than Buffalo as far as not running as much. It's more going to be deep passes, but that'll play to our favor because we have Micah and our pass rushers, and now our offense can go score for score. And so I just think we just played into a little bit better, favorable matchup against Miami than we do Buffalo.
So you're not really feeling like this is a game again that kind of is foreshadowing anything.
I don't think so, man. If we were playing maybe, let's say we went from Buffalo to San Francisco, back to back, okay, then yeah, because San Francisco's going to run it down our throats, all that stuff. Brock
Yep.
Purdy's going to be a game manager, but you got Tua who's going to sling it. You got Tyreek who's going to go deep. So I just think now we have a game. Okay, now go get the freaking quarterback. Don't worry about the run.
Yeah.
DBs, Michael, do your thing. So yeah, they have Mostert, but they use Mostert in a more of a passing scheme, anyways, not just I formation up the middle. So we would much rather it be like that because then we have better opportunity for interceptions and sacks. And then now our offense can go for because Miami's defense ain't not anything spectacular. Yeah, okay, they got Ramsey, but their defense gives up plenty of freaking points.
The thing with them when you watch them, I'm not gonna call them complete like comparison to us, but the Dolphins play a lot off of that same type. Their offense is gonna get out there, and if their defense falls into some stops and forcing some stops, they get dangerous because that is when they start to get more aggressive. And they're kind of compare. I guess you want to say you can compare them to the Cowboys in that sense. So this is also a game I still am gonna say do not go in that game playing around because it will be in a different type way. I don't think like the Buffalo Bills are not built. Not this year's Buffalo Bills. They're not built to be that team that we kind of seen over the last couple of years. Just deep play, big play, and they're gonna kind of just pick you apart and get there as they can. They're more so methodical with it a little bit this season. The Dolphins, on the other hand, are that team, like I said, I would liken to the Dallas Cowboys, where you're looking at the way that they play the game and they're attacking. They're going after pretty much your whole. Again, they're going to pretty much go after what your defense is trying to take away anyway. Because especially when you have a guy like Tyreek Hill, I know he didn't play today. I'm not sure next week. I'm pretty sure he probably will, or he at least going to want to give it a go. You playing against the Cowboys. This is going to be a game people are going to be watching. So if you want to make a splash, which we know Tyreek Hill loves to do, this is one of those. So Tyreek Hill himself, if he's back in that mix, obviously we saw Jalen Waddle had a nice, I think a big, was a 60-yard touchdown catch today. They have weapons. They have guys. Like I said, Raheem Mostert, their running back. Well, I think what is he over 1,000 yards this year now? I know. Yeah, I think he's over 1,000 now. So I'm like, we're talking about they have some playmakers, and again, we're gonna get ourselves in trouble if we are just coming out sloppy again. But hopefully, we talking about some weather that's not gonna be changing anything that we're gonna do. That's what I said. The biggest thing I don't want this team to do is, or the coaching staff more so, do not go into this next upcoming week just panicking and frantic and trying to change this and maybe we need to go. No, I don't want you to change your offense. I don't want you to go back. I want Mike McCarthy to readopt a little bit of that first half of the season offense and just know when to use it situationally. Because today, that's what I said. That was a perfect opportunity to use that type of offense today because the Buffalo Bills were dang near begging for it. They were telling you, take what we're going to give you, and then work the seniors and the big plays as you can get them. What we tried to do again was running the same thing as if we're playing against teams that are playing us predominantly man over these last few weeks, and you've been able to catch them off guard because we do know we have the weapons. That's why honestly I say I love more about that we do have Brandon Cooks. That first play, even though it didn't connect, that deep ball to him early in the game, it shows that he still has that aspect that we can keep in this offense. He can beat you downfield. And again, if we just don't try to take away these simple facts, because again, Mike McCarthy is going to come out here. I guarantee he's going to say the company man thing. We have to get better. We got beat down. We have to get more physical. We cannot get these bad penalties. Maybe I should have called thrown the challenge flag on this play. We're going to go through all that. He's going to have to defend his quarterback again. Everybody else is. This is going to be one of those games where you're going to find out what exactly Mike McCarthy is. Because if he's going to pretty much be the guy again, he's going to take over, which is why I'm not necessarily a big fan of your coach / offensive coordinator being the same person. Only because there's so much that comes with being a head coach of a team. Small stuff that people are not paying attention to because you have an offensive coordinator, a defensive coordinator, and people are kind of looking at you as if you're just kind of the guy overseeing all that. When you're the head coach, you're in charge of a situational play calling. If you feel like it's time for you to overrule what the offensive coordinator is doing a little bit, it's your time to focus on just these inner goings of a game where you're looking up and you're saying, did Donovan Wilson force that fumble? If he didn't force that fumble, I'm looking at Mike McCarthy and saying, because if you're just our head coach, you're probably more in tune with that play. And you're saying, you know what? Even if I don't know if it was actually a fumble, what am I losing from trying to make a play for my team, essentially, or so help my guys out a little bit. So I'm like, Mike McCarthy, this is where he is. I'm not about to turn a blind eye to again all the stuff that he's done this year so far as a play caller for this team. Let's be clear, but I just don't want to see bad Mike, we got used to it in certain spots in the last couple of years, show up again, because we need him to be locked in. This is where everybody should be getting better towards the end of the season. We're talking about not just the players. Your coaches should be getting better. Your coaching staff, your scouts, everybody should be getting on the same page, because now you're in the final stretch. You can't call yourself a serious team and not play these last 3 games like you're a serious team. Because go look at every team that's won a championship. Some teams, of course, you have some of these teams sneaking into the playoffs, but a lot of times when you have these wild card teams get off to these playoff runs, what happens more times than not? They're hot towards the end of the season. When you have some of these teams that are getting into the postseason, we watched the Eagles. Jalen Hurts was a little beat up towards the end of the season last year, but we watched the Eagles. They were playing pretty well going to the deeper part of the season, even with having Gardner Minshew in there. All things being so. You're usually not going to be one of those teams where you're looking up and you're playing 500 ball in your last 4, 5, 6 weeks of the season, and you're somehow going to be one of those teams that just turns it back on during the postseason. We should be getting better. And I think a lot of people also get misconstrued when you say getting better as if every game should be a 30-point blowout or a 20-point blowout. We need consistency. Consistency, that's the number one thing we should be looking for, especially as Cowboys fans. You want to see this team just getting better at the things that we have not been doing. And I want to say, obviously, our record is great right now. Run defense has been our weakness, and that's what most teams have already kind of known. But the problem is they can't ever get themselves in position to be able to take these shots, because we're usually having the game under control offensively, and now defense can just pin their ears back. So we are going to find ourselves where. Say it again. What's up?
I think that's what we need to do starting this week. Go put 45 back on the board and call it a day, and then everybody would think everything's fine, because that's less the defense has to worry about, because now we're ahead. I mean, I know Miami can score at will, but we have cornerbacks and pass rushers that would much rather a team throw it 100 times
Then try to run it 100 times. Yep, definitely.
That's going to suck, because come the playoffs, guess what the teams are going to do? Run it 100 times. So at some point, you're just going to have to pony up and say,
Yep.
freaking zero blitz every play. I don't care about the bomb, because that's what they're going to do. And until we stop it, and then make them play into our hand, to where, okay, they've stopped the run 20 times. Now we got to start throwing. Oh, pick 6, interception, sack, Micah. But we got to stop the run. That's the bottom line, man. This is how.
Yeah.
That's all we got to do right now. If we can stop the run, the offense play out, itself. Secondaries, pass rush.
Yeah, and I'm gonna say, let's talk about the running game a little bit. Tony Pollard, 11 carries, 52 yards. He had a long of 11. It wasn't anything crazy. Dak Prescott used his legs a little bit. 4 carries, 27 yards. I don't even want to flip the side and talk about the Bills rushing game right now. I'll do that in a second. But Tony Pollard, I'm gonna say, he is running stronger. And you kind of heard Greg Olsen talking about it, the commentators during the game. The number one thing a lot of people always get misconstrued is just because a guy's back, you expect him to be exactly who he was at that same time. It's a work in progress. We're talking about a guy having a leg fracture. So you're going through that. And Tony Pollard, so now you're having to rehab. You're having to get that leg strong again. You're having to try to, again, and like we talked about the number one issue with Michael Gallup over the last few years. Once tearing your ACL and trying to get back and get yourself back comfortable, it's not you just being back out on the field, because anybody can break a leg and come back out there. But can you be to the same level that you were? And are you mentally where you were prior to that injury? And I think Tony was playing just hot off his pants, because, again, you had Zeke Elliott to take kind of like those bruising hits. But Tony could come in and he could take some of those hits just because he was a change of pace kind of guy. I feel like he was more comfortable in his ability. You kind of saw earlier in this season, he was running a little bit more timid, is what I'm going to call the way I guess I can call it. And not timid as in the way of he's scared to kind of hit the holes, because I was kind of impressed when I saw him throughout training camp. Of course, you're going against the Cowboys, your own defense, but we had some dogs out there during training camp where everybody's fully healthy. You have Diggs out there. You have the rest of the combination of guys out there. And Tony Pollard was running hard all training camp. We're talking about he's been running hard since the season began, but it's those guys. When you go back and watch Tony Pollard run last year, he would take one cut and it would almost be like sometimes you would watch him run and he's setting up another move while he's making one move. Like, I'm going to fake you here, but I know I'm actually trying to get back here. You haven't seen much of that from him this year. It's more so just downfield. He'll kind of make a guy miss if he can, but then he's just trying to get what he can get. The last month, I'm going to say, when you start to see him as the games go on, he's running stronger and stronger. So I feel like his legs are getting back under him. I feel like he's getting more comfortable with just cutting off those legs, cutting off you know what I mean? And to me, that's what's going to open this team up. But I don't want Mike McCarthy, which is what I'm going to look at as, unfortunately, I don't want him. I feel like once they kind of went into the bye week, of course, we have the Chargers game and all that stuff. I feel like they created a different type variation of the offense, more aggressive, but he's still kind of using Tony in the same way that he was earlier in the season. Instead of trying to use him more like what he could be if he was using him a little bit more like last season. I'm talking about in the mindset of just getting him out in the open field a little bit more. We're running him up the hole so many times, and that's great and all. That's not really his strong suit. I don't want to see him doing that 15 times a game. I want to see Tony Pollard on the edges. I want to see us getting him more out there. We were kind of doing it over the last few weeks, which we didn't get to do today, is kind of splitting him out there in the slot position a little bit. I want to see us getting him some more of these quick screens, which we had, again, I've said, many opportunities to take advantage of today because the Bills were showing they were just going to be aggressive at a certain point in this game, and we did not even do anything to try to alter that at all. So you're going to have to completely stick to what we know and just work in some of these extra things because again, I feel like we still have not reached the peak of this offense because we are not using Tony Pollard in the way we can. Because one thing, and if you want to say it, compare it to the San Francisco 49ers. The San Francisco 49ers are the perfect example of what you do, how you run an offense where there's always something to take out of dang near every single play. Out of almost every play, it's rare you're ever seeing Brock Purdy have nobody to go to. I don't care if you're just dumping it off to Christian McCaffrey. I don't care if you're finding Debo Samuel downfield or in the quick hitting the seams, or if you see Brandon Ayuk going downfield or George Kittle. There are not many plays where you're watching the 49ers offense and there's not something they can take from every play, which I don't want us to go back to what we were doing early in the season because that's kind of what his mindset was, Mike McCarthy, is that every play is going to be somebody open. And more times than not, it was just a quick dump off. But I want to see Tony Pollard. If you're not having him in pass pro, which again could also be, I guess you want to say the argument could be you're keeping Tony Pollard. You're not using him as much because maybe you're not really as confident in this passing game. I mean, this pass protection alone. Because we know Terrence Steele has been a saloon door so much a few times this season. We see obviously Zach Martin, he's getting back. He's getting healthy. Zach Martin has been solid so far this year. He's had a couple games where you're kind of squinting at him, but it's not anything crazy. He's still all pro. So he still has that veteran, like, just that's sticking with it. But maybe, I'm going to say maybe if Mike McCarthy is just not comfortable with just taking completely not having anybody back there to help with extra pass pro. But I want to see, I do not want to see Tony Pollard just become just this straight pass protection running back, just running right up the gap. Because we saw what they did with Zeke Elliott over time. That stuff wear down on you at some point. Because if you're doing that, that kind of let me know you're ready to kind of move on to go find a new running back position. You know what I mean? Because this offense is too explosive. We have too many weapons for us to ever not be pushing everybody to their limit. And I feel like we are not really doing that with Tony Pollard, to be honest. What do you think? Outside of that, of course, we talk about Rico Dowdle, 3 carries, 4 yards, not much. Flip side, Buffalo Bills, James Cook tearing us alive, 25 carries, 179, 1 touchdown, another 42 on what in catching, another touchdown through the air too for James Cook. So, what do you think? How do you feel about the Tony Pollard, Rico Dowdle dynamic right now?
Well, it's a lot better when we're winning, and the game's going in our favor. We can do a lot more of those type of things and type of runs. But like today, once it's 21-0 and stuff, man, you just abandon everything and you just got to do what you can do to get something out of nothing.
Yeah.
Pollard and Rico, we've seen them have amazing runs and powerful runs and strong runs. Luckily, we're always on the better end of the spectrum there when it comes to those, and it's unfortunate because in a game like this, man, and wet and rainy and we're down, it's just not their style, man. They're not built, in my opinion, that way to just run in the mud. And I don't even know why we're even trying to run them. Definitely incorporate them more in the screens.
Yep.
And passing situations when we are down so much, trying to get back to ourselves. But again, it's boring. What can you do? And then you got the games like this are just so frustrating, man, because it's so easy from the outside looking in to break certain things down. But at the same time, dude, it was probably a nightmare out there with the rain and the refs. And we're down 21-0 or whatever. And,
yeah.
What can you do at that time? You got to, and that's why I'm like, okay, maybe we did kind of tone it down some. Maybe it's like, look, AFC game is pouring rain. We don't want no injuries. We have some guys getting hurt. Zach, Micah's little knee thing, but he was fine. So it's like, I don't know if we honestly, maybe if it wasn't raining, part of me feels like maybe we just kind of toned it down on purpose in a sense.
Yeah.
That could sound crazy, but it's like you gotta just, you just gotta chalk one up for them. It's like AFC team, pouring rain, Zach Martin's out. Worst can obviously happen. So let's just let it ride.
Yeah.
And your defense isn't stopping us so anyway. We would have to have 20 plus unanswered points, but also have the defense stop them
Yeah.
or hold them. And were they doing that? No. So at the end of the day, we're just going back and forth. Okay, let's just say we scored. It's 21-7. Oh well, then now it's 28-7. Okay, now it's 14-28. Oh,
Yeah.
now it's 31 because our defense wasn't doing anything.
Yeah.
So I feel like it all goes hand in hand, and we realize that, and we see that, and we're just like, okay, let's abandon the run in a sense, but let's not get too crazy with the passing concepts because maybe when you're down that much, you don't want to give away anything new for the next week on offense or whatever. Yeah, defense is there a blueprint? Yeah, run the freaking ball. Can you? So scary. Like, can we adjust to stop the run? Of course. So, is it a blueprint? Cool. Please, no passing. Just run all game towards us. Fine. I will like our chances in the playoffs to adjust. Less deep style points to worry about. If they get a big old momentum bomb or something cool, just run it all game. I like my chances. And if that's the blueprint, I'll live with that because we have 3 games to figure it out. If not, we got the playoffs figured out, and I think we will. Because I think whoever we play, none of their run games scare me. Maybe Detroit, with Gibbs and stuff, and Montgomery.
Yes, Montgomery. That's it. I was about to say that. I was gonna say the one team I feel like can literally kind of pound us to the ground. Pause. Is we're talking about the Detroit Lions because they do have Jahmyr Gibbs, they do have David Montgomery, and I'm like, but other than that, again, but ask yourself.
Told that Jared Goff has a golf game, so
Yeah.
they don't scare me too much. You hope that we're doing what we're supposed to do.
But again, even in the same mindset, we're talking about teams. Again, maybe looking to run the ball. You're going to have to hold our offense down for an entire game. And I do not see that happening again. Not multiple weeks. And again, you're not going to have rain where Dak and his receivers are not on the same page. You're not going to have, I guarantee more times than not, you're not going to see these plays where Dak is just scrambling. Because what I will say, again, the only reason, main thing I said, why this is going to next week against the Miami Dolphins is going to be big for Mike McCarthy. Not even just as a play caller, but as a coach in general, but going definitely as an offensive play caller, this is going to show if he's learned anything. Because if Mike McCarthy's learned anything, I'm going to say right now, do not be surprised if you see the Miami Dolphins come out defensively, trying to do a few things that they kind of picked up from this Bills game. And this is going to show me exactly if Mike McCarthy is what he is. Because I'm going to be able to say, if we come out here and we're in our regular, which again, I'm going to say just real quick, I had an issue with the fact we at no point tried to even really up-tempo the game. We didn't try to change any pace. We didn't try to change anything, which is why I said the issue fell onto me where Mike McCarthy was not sure if he wanted to be aggressive or conservative this game. Next week against the Miami Dolphins, if you see the Dolphins come out with any of these zone concept again that we saw the Bills playing, 2 high safeties over top, definitely just make sure you're not giving up anything deep. If we see the Dolphins coming in next week, kind of taking a little bit of that blueprint in quotation from the Buffalo Bills, and Mike McCarthy does nothing to try to counter it early on, and I'm not talking about waiting until halftime. I'm not talking waiting until where it's 2-3 minutes before halftime. I'm not talking about waiting until midway through the third quarter. If he doesn't kind of pick up on that after the third, fourth drive offensively in the first half, this is where you're going to start to see me. I'm coming on here. I'm doing my videos during the week. We're going to have the conversation where I'm going to say, Mike McCarthy's starting to worry me a little bit. Because one thing you can never do as a coach is show that you don't learn from mistakes. Because he should be in the lab this entire offseason with Brian Schottenheimer, and Dak Prescott definitely needs to be in there with them. They need to be having the entire whole system created to balance both of our offenses, because I love our aggressive offense. I don't want to go back to what we were doing in that first 4 or 5 games of the season. I don't want to do that. What I want us to do is now let's say you have your play sheet. You have your aggressive approach. I want you to be able to flip that thing around and say, but this is what we do when somebody tries to counter what we do. Because at the end of the day, you can only do so much, again, humanly possible. You can come out here and say, hey, you know what? We want CeeDee Lamb to have 12 catches, 180 yards, 2 or 3 touchdowns. We want Jake Ferguson to have about 8 or 9 or another 100. We want Brandon Cooks to have 6 for 102 and a touchdown. You can go through that all you want to and create this whole system for yourself. But what happens when you come against a coaching staff that he might not have the best players in the world, but he has the mind to say, this is what they like to do offensively. Let's slow it down as much as we can. What do you do then? That's what shows me if you're a good coach or not, because that's what the postseason is all about. Making adjustments and picking up on what you can. We could talk about how great Tom Brady was, how great Tom Brady did. Of course, that's the greatest quarterback of all time, in my opinion. So we can go through there. But again, talk about the Bill Belichick's. We can go through, and again, that's why I always say people go through the concept of, was it Tom Brady? Was it Bill Belichick? Who was it? To me, at the end of the day, it was like a perfect marriage. They both had their benefits. They both had the things they were good at, their pros and cons. And to me, but with Bill Belichick, we saw so many times. That's why it was always the narrative. I don't know if you remember this game. Well, what was the year that we signed Greg Hardy? You remember that? Yeah. And we're kind of taking, and I remember that game. We're somehow taking advantage of the Patriots that first half a little bit. And they went in at halftime, came out a whole different team. How many times do we see the Patriots do that throughout their entire Tom Brady, Bill Belichick era? That's what coaching is about in the postseason. You don't fall into 6 rings as a head coach on accident. That happened because they knew how to make adjustments. If they see something's not working, you don't keep banging your head against that same brick wall. And again, we saw so many times tonight, that's what we did. We're having the same issues. The Buffalo Bills are doing predominantly a lot of the same things the very next drive after drive after drive defensively. And we were kind of coming out there still trying to run the same offense we've been running against everybody else, which is fine. Bro, it's raining. That obviously everybody's not on the same page. You good? Now, obviously everybody's not on the same page. Come out here, switch it up. And then now if the Bills start to cheat up a little bit, that's when you strike on them again. But you have to have the nuance of being complex, because as soon as teams realize that you are one-sided and you do things one way, that's how they beat you up. And again, we saw that from the 49ers. Like I said, when you have players coming out saying, we know what they're going to do, that's when you find yourself in trouble. So Mike McCarthy, again, like I said, this Dolphins week is going to be big for him to show what exactly.
The benefit of the doubt they get is like, because being a dead horse, but because of the weather and the refs and the injuries, it's like, I don't even know if we had those kind of thought processes.
Yep.
To where it's like, just because everything was just falling apart.
Yep.
So how much do you really want to put out there now?
Yep.
How much do you really want to get exposed? It's stuff that's like, oh, we just ran our 5 best plays and still lost. Well, now we can never run those plays again because those teams will have it on film. So, like, I don't know. This is the only benefit of the doubt game for me, only because it was just ugly. Not like San Francisco ugly where we just couldn't score, but like weather, refs, injuries, defense, everything.
Yep.
Like,
which, like I said, at the end of the day, this is one of those things. Of course, I click on ESPN. You see, Stephen A. already ready to do his Cowboys trope, which we should all be expecting. So, Dallas Cowboys fans, do not freak out this week when national media does what we know they're going to do. They do it every year, and I'm going to tell you the exact flow of the way things go. The Cowboys, we get out to a hot start, and all of a sudden, it turns into, yes, the Cowboys are playing well. It'll be week 4, and they're asking, but can they do this at the end of the season? Can they do this in December? Can they do this in January? And then all of a sudden, what comes after that? The questions turn into, oh, wait, the Cowboys are still winning. Now we're going to look at who they played. Are they beating any good teams? Are they beating bad teams? What are they doing? And then all of a sudden, we sneak in a couple wins against a couple good teams. And then the narrative comes to, wait, but how are they winning these games? Now, look, they're winning at home. They're not winning on the road. Can they beat good teams on the road? You lose another game on the road, you know how it's going to go. There's always going to be a way for them to build the Cowboys up so they can bring it back down. And as a fan base, we have got to stop, I guess, taking the bait on everything. Because, again, if we look at the national media rise off the Cowboys fans, especially because they know we one of the most emphatic fan bases. We one of the most intentional fan bases, passionate fan bases. So as soon as they start talking about the Cowboys, whether you agree, disagree, they know you're going to hop all over it and tell them that they're wrong, tell them that they're crazy. We saw the Cam Newton, Dak Prescott, and game managers, Brock Purdy and Tua Tagovailoa, all this stuff during the week. And again, what did I see as soon as this game was going the way it was going? Cam Newton was right about Dak. This is how it is. So I'm like, at the end of the day, and again, I don't blame Cam for having his opinion because, again, at the end of the day, who can tell an NFL quarterback, a former MVP, that he shouldn't have an opinion the same way against some of these guys that never played football and people on TV that never played football? So he can have his opinion, whether you agree with it or not. But most fans, and I'm not even talking about Cam, I'm talking about just the national media in general. They overanalyze every decision the Cowboys make, everything Dak Prescott does, everything. So I'm like, at the end of the day, don't take the fruit. Don't bite the fruit this week. We know exactly what it is. So come out here as a fan base, shut your eyes to all the nonsense, prepare yourself as a fan for the Miami Dolphins game. We still have everything we want ahead of us. Now we need a little bit more help because I would have felt way more comfortable getting that win today and then banking on hopefully being able to see the Philadelphia Eagles take a loss tomorrow where you're sitting comfortably and now it's blatantly in front of you. Just win out and you got where everything you want to go. But now we made it a little bit tougher, but there's nothing still not in our reach. We can still win this division with a little bit of help. We can still take advantage of some of these opportunities. And again, even if you find yourself as the Cowboys making it to the playoffs as a fifth seed, I'm going to say for the first time since Mike McCarthy's been here, because that first year, obviously, we know the Dak Prescott injury. That was COVID year, I think it was. And then we look at last year, and then we're talking about making the playoffs. This is Mike McCarthy, fourth year with the team, isn't it? Yeah, fourth year. We're talking about 4 years with Mike McCarthy, 3 back-to-back in the playoffs. You're going to now start to, of course, like I said, there are no excuses for me anymore. But I believe if the Cowboys make the playoffs, even as a fifth seed this year, this can be a team that can still make some noise if the cards fall. We just can't have any games like this where, again, players just making boneheaded mistakes, whether the refs are involved. Because, again, I'm one of those, I try to stay away from the ref blaming, because at the end of the day, the ref officiating is bad throughout the entire NFL. It's week in, week out. It's inconsistent calls. Somebody will get a call on one side of the ball. They won't give it on the other side. And then it'll flip in the second half. The other team's getting the call. The other team's not getting the call. And it's the same exact play. So I'm like, we can't get into the ref blaming because at the end of the day, we can call out bad officiating. Let's be clear. But you
hope this late in the season, this was the 49ers game was the only game that was like this.
Yeah.
Months ago. So now, okay, here we are again. Okay, now we only got 3 weeks left, so we don't have to have this again into the playoffs.
You think just like me? You think just like me? I kind of get in the mindset. I'm like, hey, look, we got whooped bad this week. We go on a 5, 6, 7 game stretch where you look unbeatable. You're like, hey, maybe this is the second punch in the mouth you needed. Because I won't even call that Cardinals game a punch in the mouth. It was a nasty game, but it was a game again, emotions all over the place. Trayvon Diggs, a guy you banking on being another all-pro season for him, lose him on that Thursday practice, and then you have to go play Sunday. Deron Bland playing a whole different level. Stephon Gilmore now is not even being looked at as our second corner. It's like, hey, I might have to be your number one all of a sudden. I'm 30-something years old. You know what I mean? Everybody's on the whole play. Again, we're still playing this slow-paced offense. So I'm like, hopefully this was just another kick in the face that we needed. And again, it wasn't even that simple. Of course, media, again, everybody's going to make it. Of course, the Cowboys, even just fans across the league, to get us in that position. People are going to easily be able to kind of box score watch and stat sheet watch and then come in and just look at the Cowboys. It was the Cowboys. They lost 31-10. The game was completely different than just that. Was tackling terrible? Yes. Were there some bad mistakes? Yes. But the game got out of hand in things that, again, no team, I guarantee you right now, I think I said this to my wife during the game. I said, you're going to ask yourself, I guarantee the Buffalo Bills, if you ask every player, and I'm not saying honest opinion or even just the machismo, your testosterone still flowing, you're going to talk your noise about beating the Cowboys bad. I guarantee if you had to ask them when they're sitting at home, you think that game will happen again the same way? No Buffalo Bills player is going to tell you, yeah, the Cowboys are going to have 2. First of all, hey, that's my guy, Josh. DeMarcus Lawrence did hit him in the face mask. That should have been stopped right there. Then you're going to look at the game again and say, Sam Williams, the only way he didn't block that ball is because he jumped off his feet. He blocked the punt. He jumps off his feet, loses his angle where he should have crossbodied it. Easy block, at least. These are 2 plays, again, continue to drive, another touchdown. This is one of those games where there were so many variables in the mix that if it's easy to just look at the stat sheet in the box score and say, this is how the game went. That's not how it went. So, again, you're going to have to show me. Like I said, if the Cowboys come out here and get punched in the face next week, or get punched in the face against the Lions, or somehow, again, depending on what the way is, the way of the games are going for the last game of the season against the Commanders. If it's still a game that's kind of valuable to us, and you come get punched in the mouth again, now I can come in here, I'll eat crow and say, you know what? I didn't see that happening again. But they're gonna have to. This team specifically is gonna have to show me that they're the same as the other teams. And again, I'm all for all the Cowboys fans that are on the page of saying, new year, same issues. I'm all for those fans too, because again, until this team shows it, how can you blame anybody for kind of being pessimistic about it? You know what I mean? But we have to, at the same time, I just feel personally different about this team, man. And if you're gonna be able to show some of these players, like, because we can talk about defense, but what does it really talk about? This was a game that it was just bad across the board. You didn't have, again, guys didn't make enough plays. You know, whether it was Mozzie Smith filling in, again, getting more playing time for Jonathan Hankins, also Diggy Zua. Micah Parsons didn't have his game. Of course, he's being held a little bit. He's kind of, again, showing himself here and there. But this was just a game that defensively nobody's going to talk about. There were not many opportunities for our DBs to make plays. There were not really any outside of just tackling the ball carrier. And I'm like, so this game was just completely, I'm going to say, at the feet of bad tackling. And I can put some stuff on Dan Quinn. I don't think I can put on Dan Quinn in this specific game is, again, like you're talking about, when you start seeing the Bills kind of just taking advantage of the same B gap being open over and over and over, and they kept doing it, and they're kind of just riding the same wave. That's the only thing I'll give on Dan Quinn. Also, I saw bad Dan again today, where we're playing our DBs so far off in coverage, and I'm not understanding why. Because I know you're scared of getting beat deep, maybe, and they did take one shot, I think, to Gabe Davis against Deron Bland, and he was right there in phase, perfect, body to synced up with the receiver with Gabe Davis. I think Josh Allen take the hit on the play, ball's a little underthrown behind. Other than that, they didn't take many shots this game. So you're sitting there, and we were just giving them yards. That's where the issues come from. But other than that, I'm putting this game at the feet of Mike McCarthy just being indecisive offensively. Because, again, like I said, if we're going to be methodical, be methodical. You can't halfway do it. You can't be in certain second and short, third and short situations, but then you're still hunting for the big play. Because you saw what happened many times and not, at least another punt. And that's exactly, and then again, in one of those games, like I said, bad weather, things like that, you're going to somehow look up and say, now you look up, we're down 24-3. Now you're down, you know what I mean? And I'm like, so at the end of the day, to make that as clean and crisp as possible, this Dallas Cowboys team is going to have to show me that they're not serious this year. You're going to have to show me that. And if they show me that, like I said, I'll come back here. I'll say everybody else that the naysayers were right. But until then, I'm not feeling it, me personally. And trust me, I can't wait to be pessimistic if I think we're not doing what we need to do. But at the end of the day, I feel completely different about this team. I just do.
We just lost, man. We're gonna be fine. We got plenty of games left. It's not like the playoffs for next week. We had just terrible loss. We got 3 whole games, to figure it out, or 2.5 games, and that's all we need. And it's gonna be fine.
Yep. Like I said, 3 games left in the season. The Miami Dolphins next week, another 3:25 evening game, I'm going to say, on the 24th, December 24th. Then after that, on December 30th, we play the Lions playing the Cowboys at Cowboy Stadium. So, of course, we got home cooking. You know what that is. We love being at home. Dolphins is going to be on the road, obviously. I think they're sitting here at, 1-2-point favorites right now. Whatever that means, I don't really care about that stuff. The Lions game is going to be, is that a Monday night game, I believe? I think something like that. I think it is. And then the Cowboys versus Commanders on the road for the Cowboys in the final game of the season. So this, I guess, like I said, we just said many times, we're going to keep repeating it. The Dallas Cowboys got whooped. There's no other way around it. It is what it is. It's one of those games. But you have 3 other opportunities to get yourself prepared for the postseason. You have now officially clinched at least a postseason spot. You know you're going to be in the tournament. Who you're going to play against, that's still up in the air. But the only complaint we're going to say is just being consistent tonight. That was the issue, I think, that came from this game on both sides of the ball. Just being consistent and having an idea of what you want to do and implementing and actually executing it from the player. So this not a game to really overanalyze, because at the end of the day, you're going to kind of be beating a dead horse like we've kind of done already a little bit. Because like I said, it's the same issues that just kind of kept beating us down all game. But other than that, throw it away as a Cowboys fan, put it in the trash, kind of try to erase as much of it from your memory as you can. I won't forget everything because I got to talk about it again tomorrow. I'm gonna let you guys know my personal deep thoughts solo tomorrow. So I'm saying so we can kind of get into that. But other than that, I know Ryan feels very confident and comfortable in Dak Prescott. I still feel confident in Dak Prescott. Dak Prescott did not just he didn't turn back the hands and turn back into whatever people believed he was prior to this year. Dak Prescott is a very good quarterback. You can say top 5, top 10. I don't care what your ranking is. Dak Prescott is a capable quarterback in this league. This was a game that just got out of control. It was not the best passing weather. And it shows by both teams' standards of showing the quarterback stats just alone in this game if you watch the game. So buckle down, come out ready. Miami Dolphins. We'll see if Tyreek Hill's back. We do know Tua Tagovailoa. They also still have a guy like Jalen Waddle again making some plays still out there. So we're gonna have our hands full. But I don't think this team is scared. I don't think this team is worried. I don't think they've lost any confidence. We're still gonna be good to go. You still have Micah Parsons out there. Get him healthy. That's what this next week is about to be about for this team, especially. If I will say one thing, that's exactly what this next week especially is going to be important about. Getting everybody healthy because we are still missing Jonathan Hankins. And I think it was said a couple weeks ago he could potentially be back next week. They weren't completely writing it out. If we can get him back in there in the mix and we can get 80%, 75% of a Jonathan Hankins is better than what we had out there today when it comes to run defense. That's a big player in there for us. Because he opened, like I said, Jonathan Hankins is one of those pills that goes guys. I said lunch pill guys again, where you're looking at. It's not even about the stats for him. It's what he can open up for other people too. And again, we know our pursuit. We're just a better run defense when he's out there. I think the stats have already shown they're kind of keeping track of that earlier this season. When Jonathan Hankins is out there, we're a much better run defense. It is what it since he joined the team last year from the Raiders. So stick with what we know. Come out and be aggressive next week because, again, we're talking about weather. I'm not thinking the weather should be anything crazy right now. We're looking at it's in Miami, obviously. I think right now, right now I think they haven't projected. Obviously, we still about a week ahead of time. But projected weather right now in Miami for next week, Cowboys, Miami Dolphins will be 76 degrees. That's perfect throwing ball weather. We're not going to have to change. Tony Pollard, especially, that's probably the best thing I will say for this team. If you're looking for a silver lining in such a bad game, getting beat so handedly, you have nothing to not come out ready for next week. You know what I mean? There should be no lull for you next week. There should be nothing where this entire week should be people angry, whether you felt like it's something that was your own fault or something that you literally could have kind of worked around yourself. I guarantee every player in that well, if this team is what I think they are, everybody's going to go into that building this upcoming week for the Dallas Cowboys ready, upset, angry, because people are going to be talking about you all week, and all the Dak detractors, they're going to have their week to kind of gloat about it again, not being using common sense, obviously, but it is what it is. Like I said, Cowboys fans, lock in. Stay attached to this team because I feel like things are a little different this year. Whether you see them now or not after today, stay locked in, stay ready to root this team on because I do feel like we can still make some noise if we can handle all the business that's right in front of us. Ryan, you have any thoughts about the game? Anything about the Cowboys in general going forward before we head on out of here, man?
I think this Miami, we just rebound well. It's going to be a warm game. It's going to be warm. It's going to be hot out there. We rebound well. I think the Dolphins are better. As electrifying as their offense are, I just think they're a better matchup than Miami because the pass rush, secondary, they're gonna pass before run.
Yep.
And they don't just shoot motion up the middle. They whip them out or whatever. So we'll have better opportunity, I think, to as long as we can tackle, take care of business. And I think I can more confidently next week compared to this week predict a win, and I think we're going to be fine. I think we'll get by Miami, then it'll be 0-2 had a bad game or something because that's just how it's going to be.
I'm glad you said that ahead of time. Yeah, I'm glad you said that ahead of time. Like I said, there will always be a twist in a turn in the narrative of what happened in the game if the Cowboys pull it out or we're playing well. So, like I said, as always, I appreciate you guys for all the support. This was a rough game. Again, Dallas Cowboys final score. Dallas Cowboys 10, Buffalo Bills 31. Unfortunately, 2 thumbs down for that. But Next week, again, we have an opportunity, I believe, to take advantage of a team like the Miami Dolphins. They did handle business themselves today. So the Cowboys are going to have to come in ready to play on the road. Like I said, weather's going to be a little bit better. I'm expecting a big game out of Dak Prescott. I'm not even talking about numbers, but I'm talking about just leading this offense. I don't see us having another lull offensively. We should get back on track.
We rebound well offensively.
We'll rebound. I feel like we will. I feel like defensively, we're gonna be able to play a little bit closer to what we've gotten used to, being able to kind of pin your ears back and get after. Because again, like I said, the Dolphins will run the ball a little bit, but they're not going to be this team that you're gonna see just pounding you into the ground per se. But again, because we know at the end of the day, they want to get the ball out of Tua's hands. They want to get the ball in their playmakers, Jalen Waddle. Like I said, some of your guys like Tyreek Hill, if he's able to play next week, we'll see. But once again, the Dallas Cowboys will be against the Miami Dolphins next week. They took a loss to the Buffalo Bills tonight, but we will be back. This team is not done, in my personal opinion. I'm sure Ryan agrees as well. I appreciate you guys for all the support. Go ahead and keep liking, subscribing, sharing, commenting, all that good stuff. We appreciate you guys for the support. We're going to keep pushing. We're almost at 700 subscribers, and we will keep rising and pushing and getting better from there. You guys are amazing. And as always, go Cowboys.